A video about how Europe became successful and how this guy was actually looking 30 years ago. What was he thinking, doing, and how could a tea nerd become a successful business guy? All this in this video. Enjoy, watch it, and get some insight about my story and about Europe's story. Enjoy. How did the journey begin? So that was obviously in Japan because that's the origin of matcha tea. I was 19 when it happened, when I had my first matcha. And I have to be honest, my first matcha, I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know, do I like it? Do I not like it? Because it was so different from any kind of tea that I drank before that the first experience with matcha was a shock. But it happened in Japan, Shizuoka, actually the city called Fuji. There it happened with 19. What inspired me with matcha? So first of all, I've got inspired by the entire world of tea in Japan. So matcha, but also sencha, gyokuro, kukicha, genmaicha, all these amazing teas. And what I found interesting at the time when I was there, that was in the 80s and 90s of last century, that tea in Japan is a whole different thing. It's a whole different culture. It's hard to find something to compare it with. Maybe the only beverage we can compare it with might be wine, with a long ancient history also in Europe and longer tradition, and many tales and a vivid industry. But with tea, you find amazing long history, amazing long traditions. What inspired me to get involved with matcha? First, I got involved with tea in Japan, green tea. Japan's the only country which produces just green teas. Now it changed a little bit, but historically only green teas, and it's the only place where matcha existed. And matcha is so fascinating because it's like all different from teas that you know. It's not a leaf, it's a powder. It's not green, it's super green. It's not been poured with hot water and then you take away the tea leaves and throw them, but you have the entire tea leaf in the powder form itself. You cannot make 2, 3, 4 infusions, just one, because you dilute the entire tea in powder form with water. You get the essence of tea. And I think one of the fascinating moments to drink matcha tea is, although I'm not doing that very often, but very fascinating, is drinking it in tea ceremony. Because in the tea ceremony, you really understand what's happening with you. You have time to focus. You have time to prepare the tea or get it prepared by the host. Enjoy it and get to know this fascinating effect. There's nothing that compares to matcha. It's like a really unique product. And I felt like I discovered cocoa. I discovered chocolate. No one else knew what chocolate is. It felt exactly that way. Discovering matcha and seeing the potential, what you can do with it, is like super fascinating. What's also fascinating is if you talk to the people who produce matcha tea, because it's a general thing. If you want to be successful in life, you need patience. Instant things that come quickly, instantly, instant gratification is actually a good kick for everyone, but it doesn't give you long-term success. Tea farmers who produce matcha tea need to be extremely patient to grow a tea field that can sustain this high-tech production, being shaded and then being steamed, dried, and produced into matcha tea. Because it's an art to produce it. It's much, much harder to produce matcha than any other tea. And I think that's fascinating me. It's fascinating me that people go deep and commit to one thing. It's a very Japanese thing, I have to say, because Japanese love to really learn one thing. If you go in Japan to a Japanese restaurant, there's no such thing like Japanese restaurant. It's either a noodle restaurant for ramen or for soba. You would say, hey, 2 noodles. Yeah, different restaurants. Restaurant for sushi, restaurant for curry rice, restaurant for donburi, which is kind of a pokeball nowadays in our society. So each type of food got its own restaurant. It's amazing. It's an amazing concept that doesn't exist somewhere else in the world. They have dedicated restaurants just for one type of food or one class of food. And why do they do that? They do it because if you just do one thing, you can become really good at it. That's a lesson I learned when I was very young, and that's a lesson that no one taught me, but Matcha teach me, or the people who do Matcha teach me. So I'm working with my friends and partners of Aya. Aya is a company in business since over 130 years. They're in business since 5 generations. That's patience, right? To do something and not just to do it in your lifetime, but to do something that you want to pass on to another person's life as well. Amazing principle. There's a statistic. If you look at the statistic of the oldest still existing companies on the world, the oldest still existing companies. We think in Europe we have like old companies because we have some breweries dating from 1600 something, 1500 something. But the oldest companies in Japan are 1100. And yes, the oldest companies are all in Japan. So try to master one thing really well. That's matcha. And if you get to know it and just focus on it, you will find out that every day you deal with matcha, there's something new you can learn. That's the beauty of it. I was 17 years old when there was like an event from my school inviting different students from different studies and talking to young kids, 16, 17-year-olds kids, what studies there are, what you can study. And I remember that in my school, I have like everyone in my class was studying number 1, law, number 2, economics, and then some few people, but the rest studied medicine. That's it. Law, economics, medicine. I just thought, okay, is there something else in the world except law, economics, and medicine? By the way, economics, I liked it as well, but I thought, okay, just economics? It sounds like kind of boring. And I found out that there are some kind of really exotic studies. And one of the super exotic studies was Japanese, Japanology, how it's called. And I was talking to a student at the time who was like in her 7th or 8th semester and asked her, okay, what do you think? Is it a good idea to study Japanology? And she said, no way, don't do that. I said, okay, why? It's the craziest writing in the world. You have 2,000 kanji. Kanji is Chinese characters used in Japan as well. 2,000 kanji that are the standard ones. But if you include names, places, etc., there are a couple of thousand more. You have 2 syllables. Syllables like an alphabet, just with a combination of syllables. 2 syllables that they mix randomly into these characters. And then just for the fun of it, they put our alphabet as well. So you have like 4 different writing systems. You can write it from right top to left bottom, from back of the book to the front of the book. You can write it in any form. You just need to know how to read it. Don't do that. This is crazy. Okay. And why are you doing it? Well, I started to do it because I'd like the challenge, but I have to say, this is crazy. And on top, there's no business opportunity. There are no job opportunities. Okay, you study Japanology and then no one needs that. So what do you do with it? Okay, And what else? It's a pain in the ass, excuse my English, to study it because it's so long. It takes like 8 years to study it. But here in the university info, it's written it takes 4 years. It's impossible to study it in 4 years because all the courses are not available in these 4 years' time. Take at least double of the amount. So essentially, she talked me out of it. And I thought, this sounds so crazy that I'd like to do it on top of doing economics. So I started with it when I was 18. I did my first semester. I was doing okay, not super good, but okay. And I decided to go to Japan to speed up the process because it was really hard to learn just from the books. I had to remind you guys, at the time when I was studying, no internet existed, no smartphones existed, not even mobile phones existed. So all you could access another country, another world was books and films. That's it. So, or travel. So, okay, went there, was immediately fascinated by tea. And when I went there, that's where I met tea and matcha. In Japan. Because before I went to Japan, I have to say I'm born in Austria and Vienna. I'm born in the 1970s. When I was a kid, you just drink tea when you're terribly sick. You drink this kind of kidney tea or kind of bronchitis tea, which is like if you have like heart infection, if your lungs are hurting. So you drink tea that really tastes like they have to work or they have to function, because you wouldn't drink that for pleasure. And when I was at skiing, because in Austria, school kids, you went at my time at least, you went at least once a year for skiing. While skiing, there was always this terrible, terrible fruit tea. It was so sour that you think that your mouth get numb. So tea was like not a pleasure. And when I went to Japan, I discovered this whole new world of tea. Actually, it's super tasting tea, really tasty. And people don't drink it because they're sick. They drink it to enjoy it daily. Wow. So this was like culture shock for me to get to know tea. And I got hooked. Okay, so many questions. Let me try to answer them one by one. So first of all, how did I switch from a nerd to someone who is earning his money from it? Because that's what I was. I was a tea nerd, right? Just a guy who was like enjoying tea and going deep into it and talking with other tea nerds, mostly guys, by the way, and super nerdy. That's it. How to produce it, how to drink it, how to harvest it. I was like so nerdy into it that I did like the entire production process, which was not even part of my study. So I just went out there into the tea farms, to the tea mountains, to the tea fields, to learn directly from the farmers. That's why where I built my network. That's why where I get to know tea farmers, which are still till today my friends, and get to know the way of making tea and what's important in soil, in weather, in caring about the tea, in seasons, what season has which kind of work. So I lived in Japan for 2.5 years, so I had this time to enjoy it in the tea gardens. I'd say one of the opportunities to get like a little bit more into the industry was as a student in Japan in the 1990s, where Japan was not at all touristy, open, or internationalized. I was like the only foreign guy in the city of Shizuoka, which is like a capital of Shizuoka Prefecture, around 1 million inhabitants. And I built my network. I get to know more and more people. And there's a cool thing about Japan. If Japanese people, they like someone, they will help them. So I had a couple of people who helped me. My professor, for example, at university, he helped me. He introduced me to another guy who mentored me and who introduced me to other tea farmers and other tea guys. So I broadened my network. And sooner or later, I get to know a guy who was the publisher of the, at that time, there was something that existed called newspaper, right? So for the younger of you guys, it's like a website, but printed on paper, right? It's crazy. But since the internet didn't exist, that's what we did. We read from paper. And there were also specialized papers, not just general newspapers, but specialized papers. And one was the tea industry paper, which appeared 6 times a year. And the editor asked me if I would love to write a column how a foreign guy sees the Japanese tea industry. And I started to have my own column. Challenge was I needed to write it in Japanese. So that was a pretty cool challenge, which helped me to improve my Japanese in no time. Because if it was like not really a good text, you just send it back and said, sorry, I don't understand, make it again. So that really helped me to improve. And this tea industry paper has been read by tea industrial people. So you could say every owner of a tea company in Japan, after a year, knew that there was like a guy from Austria, from Vienna, studying tea in Shizuoka. And it opened lots of doors. But one door which opened was what I'm actually doing right now. That was my activity on a tea mountain. While I was working in the tea mountain harvesting, I get to know a young tea farmer who told me, I have to introduce you to a company. Why? Yeah, my grandfather sells tea to them. Yeah, so? Yeah, and his father sold tea to them. Okay, and my father sells tea to them. And one day I will sell tea to them. I said, okay, what are you guys talking about? All your entire family sells to them? Yes, since their grandfather and their great-grandfather, they're great guys, you need to meet them. So he introduced me to this company called Aya, which has a very specific way of purchasing tea, very different to the rest of the industry, not buying anything which is on the market, on the trade, but having this like long-term generational relationship with tea farmers, which I didn't know that existed till that time. So he invited me. I went over and I met the, at that time, president of Aya, who said, nice to meet you. And that's how it started. And to ask then how it became a business. We were in a friendly relationship. I went back from my study. I did my military service. And I was, after my military service, I was working a full-time job here. Actually, I was working in a very stressful job, doing at least 60 hours a week. While I was doing that, I was doing it my free time, which was scarce, of course. In my free time, at the weekends, at the evenings, or when I had like holidays, I was starting to build a business with products from Maya and starting to introduce it to people, just as a just my free time. So it's so funny. So many young people tell me they want to work part-time. I said, why? Yeah, because I want to do this and that and that, and I want to build a life, I want to build another business or whatever. So, okay, even if you work full-time, it's 40 hours. You know how many hours a week has? 168 hours. Okay, you work 40 hours, so what? I have still 128 to go, right? That's what I did. So if you'd like to learn what's a success trait from people who build things, it's just like a very, very different toleration level of time and work. And why? Not because I'd like to be in a treadmill and be my own slave, but because I genuinely enjoyed it. I was nerding around. So for example, imagine you are loving video games, right? You won't count the hours of you doing video games, right? If you do video games from, you come back from school or from university, you have your dinner, you go back to your room, you start to video games at 8 p.m. and you do them till 1 o'clock in the morning, 5 hours. You would not even maybe stand up to eat or to drink or go to the bathroom because you're so much into your thing. You wouldn't count that as work. And same with tea. I loved to introduce tea to people. I just love to talk about it. Like in this video, talking all the time about tea. Just love it because I love to help you guys to find out what's in there. And at a certain point, we discussed and said, okay, let's make a business out of it. When I already grew the businesses part-time to a certain level, I stopped my full-time job that I was committed to. I quit, and I just did this year. And I did it since full-time February 2001, so that's like a couple of time ago. And that's another character trait, is I never decided after I committed to do this business to do something else. I never decided to do, I don't know, something crazy like wine or coffee or trade or whatsoever. I just focused in building tea and building matcha. So, but of course I didn't know that it worked. Many failures during the time as well. Oh wow. I made so many mistakes, I don't know where to start. But one big mistake that I made was not understanding motivation of employees that work for me or for the company. I was always making for a long time the mistake saying, if I'm committed and if I'm doing 40, 50, 60 hours, why do they want to go home at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock? I don't understand. It's so fun to be here. It's so fun to do it. Why do people count hours? Till one day I understood, they count hours because I pay hours. And of course, an employee is not the owner of a business. So that doesn't mean that they don't work amazingly, that they are not committed, not at all. It just means that they have like another skin in the game than me, myself, or my friends from Japan. Totally normal. And once I understood that, I finally started, after, I'd say, making at least 10 years of terrible leadership mistakes, finally I understood how people tick. And finally I could start to be motivational and try to see their world. Still, sometimes I have hard time to understand each and every individual's choices, but I don't need to understand every individual. But I really changed from, before I was obsessed to build matcha and to build tea and to bring this culture to Europe. This was my obsession. Now I'm obsessed to teach it to my team so they can bring matcha and tea to you guys. I'm obsessed to find better ways, to find more effective ways, to find better leadership methods, to train myself in being a better leader every day and to challenge myself and to fail still. But that's what I really genuinely enjoy now. And I'd say the biggest mistakes, there are many of them, biggest mistakes were all leadership mistakes. Not understanding people's motivation. Although I was doing the right thing and doing just matcha and believing in it, there were many years where it was, in terms of business, not successful. Many years where I could barely pay me a small salary. Really something small. And I think the hardest time is when you think you're doing the right thing, you totally believe in it, but you're the only one. You and your 2-3 employees. So we were 4 people. 4 people fighting for one mission, and the rest of the industry is laughing about you. Saying, guys, powder? Come on, tea in Europe is a tea bag. What are you guys doing here? Crazy people. That was tough sometimes, because it's okay to wait for a year, it's okay to wait for 2 years, but it took at the end me. It doesn't mean that it needs to take that long. I lacked a lot of skills. But me, it took, I'd say, 8 years till I found some success. And then maybe another 8 years to say, okay, this is really sustainable business that I built. Yeah, so what is really tough? There's this saying, first they laugh at you, then they criticize you, and then they admire you. This, when they laugh at you, it's just a so short saying, but when people don't take you for serious, or people think you're crazy, right? You're like, what? Come on, tell me something crazy. 1 tin of 30 gram of tea, $50. You're totally banana. You're totally nuts. And there's one guy in the tea industry in Hamburg. He told me, I don't want to work with you because you're crazy. What you're doing will never become a serious business. And this was a guy of a company, which I will not name, of course, which is a very successful tea trader company, doing that also for the 3rd or 4th generation. So someone with really, business acumen, with real know-how, was like a huge company, very, very successful guy in his part of the business. I mean, this will never be successful. Just forget about it. Go home. Yeah, that felt like a failure at the time. Now it feels good. Yeah. I'm having around 3 to 4 cups of matcha a day. And the first one I have at around just before 6 o'clock. I wake up between 5 and 5:30. And just before 6 o'clock, I'm having my first matcha. And that inspires me to wake up early, to wake up. In these times, it's easy to beat the sun, be earlier awake than the sun. It's a great time in the day. To use that time to do sports and some meditation, and then to start the day when you already achieved something. That's like a really cool thing. Then I go to my business, get my second matcha at around 9 o'clock, and I use this time while having my matcha tea to do focused work, so to work on important projects or to work on important writings that I want to do, or customer communications that I'd like to do. So to work on that, taking my third matcha at around 11 o'clock, and then around 11 o'clock I start my first meeting round with important meetings, updates, etc. And my fourth matcha, I have it just after lunch, so around 2 o'clock, and then I stop my matcha consumption in order to be ready to sleep again in the evening. But it inspired me to have this rhythm in the day. It gives me this kind of rhythm in the day. And if you do matcha in the morning, if you do it yourself, some people can drink matcha on an empty stomach, like me, or most people can do it. Some people who are sensitive to caffeine can't, so they need to eat something first and then have their matcha. But either way, if you have matcha in the morning just by yourself, and you're just with the bowl and you, that's like an amazing time. At this time, time flies. Just drinking your tea and you spend 10-15 minutes. It's like, I invite all of you to try this. It's really, really spiritual and meditational at the same time. How did it inspire my mindset? Matcha is DT for leading a healthy, long life. And that's the that's my mission, to help to show matcha tea to people, to incorporate it into their lifestyle, to have a better and healthier lifestyle. 80% of people die out of lifestyle choices. Heart attack, diabetes, etc. is not fate, it's lifestyle. And if I can inspire people to change to a healthier diet without forcing them or telling them you have to do that, and if matcha can inspire them, that's like a great thing to do. It's something which I'd say discipline sounds like negative for some people, but discipline is hard if you have to force yourself to do something against your will. Let's say you force yourself every day, you don't want to, but you force yourself every day to, let's say, wake up early, just to take any example. Anything that you know is better for you if you do it, but you dislike to do it. But you know it would be better. You can force yourself with discipline, but it will only work so long. You need to change discipline into a habit, because habits are what drives us as humans. And if it's a habit to eat and drink healthy, to live healthy, to do sports daily, if this becomes a habit, you don't need any more discipline. You just need the discipline to start, to keep a certain time till it becomes a habit. And discover this hack, life hack, changing disciplines to habits. Whatever you dislike, if you think it's important for you and you should do it, you force yourself to do it in a routine, so you don't need to think about it anymore for the rest of your life. This is something that I learned through matcha. Amazing life hack. It's German, and literally translated it would mean the Pope of Tea, so that sounds like a little bit strange. I'd rather translate it into English like the tea guru. It came through a joke that my friends made, because I was studying tea in Japan. And this joke only works in German, so sorry for that, but I tried to explain it into English. Studying tea, if you say it in a funny way, sounds like teologist. In German it's Theologe, but Theologe usually means someone who studies religion, but it sounds just the same, exactly the same. It's spelled slightly different. So my friends were referring to me because I was studying Japanology, Japanologie, and then I studied tea. They were referring to me like studying theology and calling me Theologe, so the guy who studies tea. Weird way to say it in German. And then, since I like to preach or explain a lot about tea and tell people about tea, I got nicknamed Teepapst. It's actually not so super that serious as a name, but it's more like half of it is also like a nickname. So it's when I hear this name, for me it's I always think about my friends who invented this name for me, and I have to laugh about that at one time. At another time, I think it's a sticky name that's easy to remember in German, and it's easy to remember, okay, this is a guy who just knows his stuff about tea. It's, I'd say, a better sounding word, a better marketed word than tea nerd. Yeah, so funny for me, but interesting that people who don't know the story, some people who don't know the story told me it sounds arrogant. And I know that arrogance is the least that my friends intended, or respect was not really part of that as well. So it's made me really laugh about how people who don't know the story just take things sometimes so serious. Come on, relax. I just love to talk about tea and tell as many people as possible and inspire them with it. That's it. 25-ish, 25, 26, yeah. A group of friends, yeah. No, my group of friends from here, from my school. So we went to the same school since we were 10 years old, which is in Austria after elementary school. And we're still friends. We know each other now for 40 years. So we know each other inside out. They're like this group of friends, like brothers or family to me. Yeah. So yeah, group of 4 friends. I generally believe that matcha will be an independent industry from the tea industry. Not saying it's against the tea industry, but it's established itself as a new part. Why? Because so many businesses now dealing with matcha have no tea roots. They are just dealing with matcha because they like the product and they like to maybe produce another product with it and to sell it to their customers. So matcha started to become independent from the tea industry and started to become an industry of its own. Of course, it's rooted in Japan. It's rooted in tea, but also matcha started to be also produced in other countries, like China is one of those countries which started to produce matcha, and others will follow. It will be a world product and a world trend, like cocoa or chocolate is. You wouldn't expect that cocoa powder, which is the base of chocolate, you wouldn't expect that cocoa powder would be successful if you think about its original form. The original form of cocoa powder is a brownish, slightly bitter, intense powder, unsweetened, that people would also drink with water, hot water, sometimes also with spices, etc. That was just not a product at that time made in that way that was yummy for the general terms. But once people discovered to mix it with milk and sugar and to decide to make from cocoa chocolate, it made a big bang and it's now everywhere in the world. I think matcha has the potential to do the same, to be everywhere in the world and to become a world food like coffee, tea, and cocoa. I'm sure it will be the 4th category, and it's the, like cocoa as well, is a product that started as a beverage and ended up into food, as most people who consume chocolate nowadays would rather eat it than drink it. I'm sure the same will happen with matcha tea. People are now discovering the drink matcha or matcha lattes or matcha drinks. That's what they discover now, but they will end up to enjoy it as a flavor in ice creams, in chocolates, in other food stuff. And that will be totally independent from the tea industry. That will be the matcha industry. Yeah, it's a good question. For cocoa, it took cocoa from the discovery of Christopher Columbus, discovery of America, as we call it, till people actually discovered cocoa in the Americas. Maybe it took around, it was 1550, 1600s when it's been discovered. And the time when chocolate was invented was the late 19th century, so 1850, between 1850 and 1900. So that took 250 plus years. But of course, that was another time. I think we are now currently in the midst of establishing the matcha industry. It's happening right now, every day. And since it's a growing market, right now there are all the opportunities here. But I think in around 5 years, 5 to 10 years latest, the industry will be settled and the players will be clear. The timing to see matcha at the same level of cocoa. So already companies are producing these products, already these products are on the market. To see these products mainstream, I'd say, I hope it will be quicker, but I suppose it takes another generation. It took me to overcome the generation of my age, of people in their 40s and 50s. They didn't want to change their taste palette. They were not motivated to taste something new. And if you talk now about matcha, you have a clear age, strict age division. Older people would mostly not drink it, not even try it, and if they try it, not enjoy it. The group of younger people would. And if you look at the younger people, the younger they are, the more they like matcha. So it's more likely to have people in their 20s to love matcha than people in their late 30s. And I think that this trend continues, that the kids who are now the alphas, as we call them, kids who are now in their 10s, teenagers, when they will be consumers, this age will come. Yeah, so one more generation. Kind of 10 to 20 years. Message to matcha lovers. If you love matcha tea, make sure you buy amazing quality. Try to be generous with yourself and offer yourself one of the nicest luxuries that you can offer you and your body. That's buy amazing matcha tea, buy amazing qualities. A quality that feels too expensive is just the right one for you. That's how you should spoil yourself and your body and your health. That's my message to you as a matcha lover. And to the matcha industry, look, if you're in the matcha industry and your fellow guys in the matcha industry, let's focus on quality. Let's not do shit. Let's not do cheap stuff. Let's not do powders, some plants, put them into some mixer, call it matcha, because no one knows. Let's not do that. Let's not even take normal tea. Let's take, as it's intended, let's take tencha and make really amazing qualities. Honest matcha. Because consumers, even if they're not tea experts, they know the difference between good and bad. And everyone likes something which is yummy over something which is terrible. Even if consumers say, which is correct of course, that they like to have a cheap price. We need to be smart to make products and to offer them amazing products that are both affordable and amazing in quality. So in the tea industry, it's too late. The tea industry is in tea bags. The tea industry is on price. If you want to see the matcha industry where you don't want to go, because you'll not be enjoying it so much, where you don't want to go, look at the tea industry. There are amazing people in the tea industry now emerging as well with quality, but the industry is being run by quantity and by cheapest price, with terrible impact in the countries where it's being produced, where the cheap stuff is being produced in Africa. And those people who sell those kind of teas are responsible for the conditions. That's it. So if you want to be responsible for good conditions of your customer, giving the final customer something yummy and healthy, good relations with your suppliers, good relations with the tea farmers and tea planters and the tea pluckers, make sure to always make a good quality and fair product. That's my message. And I invite you to stay on quality because the market is growing. There's no reason why this will not work if you join into quality. I started, first of all, without incorporation in 2001. So that would be a level where I would not call it CEO. I was just the guy doing Europe. In 2003, in October 2003, I incorporated the first limited company, the first GmbH, at the time in Austria. So October 2003, that would be the start. Success factors are, first of all, quality without compromise. Never compromise on quality. We'd rather find a solution on pricing or on how to save costs and how to be more efficient to serve our customers' needs, but we never compromise on quality. Second one is we always want to master the product throughoutly. So we didn't just say, okay, let's produce good quality, but we thought we need to produce good quality, which is organic and which is totally in line with all European regulations. Something which is new for a lot of suppliers, or which was new for a lot of suppliers in that industry in the last 5 years or so, is something that is in our roots, where we started to it. Quality, have the product really 100% safe. Try to control every part of the production, and from terms of Europe, try to control everything which is happening in Europe. So we're importing matcha tea on cooled containers, refrigerated containers, being much more expensive than normal containers. Bring the product here. We store it in a refrigerated warehouse. For customers who buy large quantities like pallets, 2 pallets, 3 pallets, we send in refrigerated trucks. So it's all extra costs that are not visible to consumers. You can't see that this tin has been stored cool all the time till it's reached you. You don't see that. But you're convinced that you taste that. And we were always freaks about this, although it cost much more. Although our logistic was much more expensive than anyone else. And I think this is one of the success factors, is the product. The second success factor would be patience, working on a market and not giving up. Patience is something that's important for businesses, but it's also important for people. So many people could be successful, could make a great career, could earn a lot of money if they only were more patient and doing what they are doing. So many career advisors out there are just deceiving people. And so many business advisors out there say, hey, you can become an Instagram entrepreneur and earn money in no time, or TikTok entrepreneur, earn money in no time. It's not impossible, but that's the absolute exception. If you have patience, however, you'll always end up successful if you have a good product. If what you sell has a need in the market, there's no way you can't be successful. So patience is the second one. Keep going. And the third one is, I'd say, some people would call me crazy 20 years ago to sell a product like matcha, because there was like no one doing it. Totally crazy, never heard of product in Europe at that time. And I think the strength is to believe, even if you're the only one believing in one thing and the rest says this is crazy, it's actually possible that you are right and the entire rest is wrong. It's actually possible. If you find something really good with like no strings attached. So for example, with matcha, it's not like alcohol. You drink too much, you get drunk. You drink too much, you have a headache. Or like chocolate, you eat too much, you get fat. You get too much sugar. You like too much sweet things. So there's no side effect with matcha. The only addiction as a side effect is health. And I think that's a great addiction. And if you know there is like no side effect, there's like nothing that happens bad in a bad way. You're not cheating people on anything. You're doing them a favor. Even if you're the only one believing in it that's working, I'd say this strong belief is the third success factor. Yeah. First of all, what I'd like to explain to all my employees, but also to my customers and to you if you're listening and hearing this video, is the reason why we are doing what we are doing. We generally believe that if you drink matcha daily, you will have a healthier, better, and longer life. That's what we strongly believe. I'm passionate about that. It's the opposite of a cigarette. Every cigarette that you take will shorten your life. Every matcha that you take will make your lifespan healthier, better, and longer. So this is the most important thing for my team to understand. That's why we do that. If you want to do that for money, go to an investment bank or find something else if money is your major driver. That doesn't mean that we don't pay our people fairly. We do. But it's not our number one. That's not our number one goal. To earn money or to earn a good income and to have a good salary and to have a good career is the side effect of doing something amazing. So that's what I try to explain my team. Everyone who starts to work in my company gets to see a couple of videos. It takes around 1 day to see all of them. Sometimes it takes longer, depends on the department. And that's my first video where I talk about the company. This is like what we try to do. What I also try to do is to explain a couple of values that we have as a company. And to our values are humans first. It's like so easy, but you know, humans first means we want to respect people's personal choices. We want to respect people's personal styles. We want to make sure that they can be successful in our environment. So that's respect for people. That's one important thing. Another important thing is this aim for excellence. If you just want to work to earn your money, you'll not be happy in my team. My team are people each position might be different, each department might be different, and each career level might be different. But everyone on his career level who stays with us wants to become excellent in his area of expertise. Wants to become an expert, wants to do excellent work, and is kind of a perfectionist. That's what that's our values, and that's what works for our people. Yeah. Just to give 2 examples, but we have a document around 4 pages with all our values, and I made a video about that for my team. So if you want to know all of them, you can apply for a job at iEurope. And if you both agree in a position and you'll start, you get to see that video as well. Recently, the matcha culture here is a matcha latte culture. So it's developed into a cool, fancy lifestyle drink that started to be in just a couple of coffee shops and took over, I'd say, most cool and hip coffee shops. Yeah, of course, if you have like old style cafes, you might not find matcha drinks yet or matcha lattes yet, but if you're in a cool and hip area in any European city, for sure there is a cafe that's cool enough to have matcha drinks offering, and people are lining up for those drinks. So if they look yummy, if they taste well, people are lining up, and there's a new category of cafes which is evolving, and I'm proud that this category exists, and that's matcha cafes doing just matcha drinks, no coffee. Yeah, really nice. So the biggest challenge is distinguish between professionals and Me Too's. So professionals, which is a company like Aya is the market leader, but there are other great real matcha companies also out there who are pros. Professionals will always sell comparable quality, meaning it's made of tencha, it's made of stone mill, it's made in an artisanal way, it's made in a great way because it's an authentic Japanese product. Me Too's are just in the market for the quick money, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges for both professional and individual buyers, because if you don't know the original players and you can't distinguish a real player and a real producer from a Me Too guy, because it's all look like green powder to you, I think that's a real challenge to orient yourself, to find the right supplier, and to not get, without taking care, to not get tricked by someone. That's hard. So the vision of IU company, we're now a company which does 8 digits in turnover, which is a nice, decent company. It belongs in terms of size to the top 3% of companies in Germany. But if you look at this top 3%, it's still at the bottom. It just entered the 3%. There are so many companies in the food and drink area alone who do much, much more. So compared to a large company, we are still super small. So my vision is to make this company much bigger, to grow it by 10x, 10 times bigger, in order to make sure we complete our mission and bring Aya Matcha into every household in Europe. I want the product to be in every household in Europe. First of all, I want matcha, real matcha, to be in any household in Europe, and then I want to have Aya Matcha, because that's the ultimate upgrade. I want Aya Matcha in every household in Europe. And in order to achieve that, we must become much bigger, much more professional, much more efficient than we are already now. And can't wait to grow the company to this level. Do yourself a favor, start to drink matcha today. That was an interview with me, all questions and answers that might be interesting for you, but there is a gift I have for you, because it's, Christmas time, end of the year and beginning of the new year. Make yourself an amazing present, start a new habit by enjoying matcha every day in this new year. Happy New Year and happy, healthy New Year. Enjoy.